Looks like
We
we're
are
live.
live.
Hey!
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Blair duQuesnay. You
And-
probably already know who George Kinder is if you're attending this session.
but just in case, I'm
Just in
George Kinder.
case, thank you for the love. We are here live today. We're so glad that some of you were able to join us. While people are starting to jump on, I just wanted to make an announcement that I'm really excited that George Kinder is going to be appearing at Future Proof this year. He is going to be speaking on the concept of fiduciary in all things, which we're about to debate. September 8th. Huntington Beach, California, you can still sign up for Future Proof. George, did you see we just announced the musical acts for the conference last week?
No, I didn't see that. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
For those of us who were in high school in the 90s, it'll be very nostalgic. We have Blues
Mm.
Traveler and Bush, so it
Woo.
should be it should be a fun event. Not as fun as your session though. So,
Oh, well, I can't wait. Really looking forward.
all
All
right,
right.
well, let's get into it. We have named this a debate. You are going to talk about your global concept of a fiduciary in all things, FIAT for short. We're going to take this debate in the form of what does this mean for corporations?
Great.
I'm going to take the side of the capitalist and debate you on why I think fiat is not a good idea for corporations. And so, just as a little opening statement, we're most of us who are in the investing world are familiar with modern capitalism, but it's the thing that's created all the wonderful products and services that we enjoy today, including this medium we have here where you are in London, I am in North Carolina. We are broadcasting live to an audience. The concept of pooling investor capital, risking that money in a corporation whose managers are first and foremost concerned with generating profits on that investment. That is the modern capitalist system. It has worked well. It is the reason we have these devices in our hands that are helping us do that. It's the reason that so many people have been brought out of poverty all around the globe. Life expectancies have increased because of all the innovations in medicine and technology. Why on earth would we want to undo that? Why would we want to take the eye off the ball of uh, profits and shareholders above all else in this modern system of capitalism that has worked so well? And that is my opening statement.
Whoo, boy. I didn't prepare one, Blair. Let's see what I can do. Uh, First of all, I think that I absolutely agree. It's amazing. It's amazing. Here I am in London, and Blair is with all the waterfalls in North Carolina right now, and so this is just an incredible thing. What the reason that we're having this debate is that as much as capitalism has produced all of that, it also has planted the seed of its own undermining. There's something called negative externalities. I'm not going to go through all of them right now, but the negative externalities of capitalism itself are that it's a hierarchy of power. So that means that it's supporting more and more hierarchies of power in the world, which undermines democracy. It also means that greater and greater inequality, which undermines entrepreneurial endeavor. And of course, we see all the scary things that are around us. Why isn't capitalism really addressing those? We're finding that they're scaling at a much more rapid pace than we can cope. So fiat addresses all that. It says that in addition to capitalism or interwoven with capitalism, we need a standard that is fiduciary, humane, and trustworthy for all of humanity.
Yeah. So fiduciary in all things, it does sound a little kumbaya, George. I mean, do we really think that we can play on the best of humanity and get the same results that we've had? Again, this modern creation of wealth, abundance, the things that we enjoy, um, has really come about because of the shareholders. And it all comes down to those shareholders wanting to risk their capital, right? And so they will earn a return. And I just have a hard time figuring out how would we go about making a switch from what we have that has worked so well and not disincentivize future investment, right? If we can't pool large sums of money to innovate, to take chances, to take risks, where will we go from here if we water down that standard of profits and shareholders above everyone else?
So the standard of profits and shareholders above everybody else, that's a problem. But
Mm.
in fact, risking money, where's the money going to go? I mean, it's not that, if we have a fiduciary in all things standard, it's still going to flow in to capital endeavors, which is fantastic. So the fiat is really not against capitalism. It's just adding an edge that will be fiduciary. And just as an example of this, seeing, well, we see the same results. I'm going to toss back at Blair. Blair, are you a fiduciary?
I am
There
in
you
my
go.
professional life.
Yeah, and so you must be, filled with regulations because of that fiduciary thing. You must be really slowed down. You're not as profitable. You're not paying attention to all those things. You're not as innovative. Is that true?
Actually, that's a really good point. I work for a very innovative company. It is a meaningful, profitable endeavor. You make up a good point. We are a small business, however, and when I'm thinking about capitalism, I'm thinking about outside investors, thousands upon thousands of outside investors risking their capital on managers they may not even know. Isn't that what we do when we invest our retirement funds in these huge mutual funds and ETFs? We don't even know these managers, and so we have this assurance, right, that they're not going to go look out for um, anything else but trying to focus on bringing us home the bacon, right?
Yeah.
And so in that where there's that disconnect between investor and manager, how do you square that? If now we have to be a fiduciary to all things, right? And maybe you can elaborate on what you mean by that. Who are they going to be a fiduciary to, if not just the shareholders?
Well, I think that, I mean, they have to be fiduciary to the shareholders. That's part of what fiat is all about. It's not undermining capitalism. It's really adding something that is humane and trustworthy. Because we've got
Mhm.
to go somewhere from here, and we've got this. We've got democracy that's flailing. We've got the planet that's flailing, and we've got the truth that's flailing, and massive inequality. So where do we, I mean, massive inequality? I just read a statistic that we've got 26 billionaires that own as much as 3.8 billion people. Imagine if those people had more wherewithal so that they could be entrepreneurial. What would we see in terms of risk taking and innovation across society? So I think that again, it's not against what's happening now. Money is still going to pour into these ventures, but it's that the organizations. What we've done since the 70s or something, 80s, we've undermined government so that government is no longer able to do the work that it used to do in terms of the environment, for instance, and other things. So if they're not going to do the work, who is? And it isn't a lot of work just simply to say, hey, let's make sure, it's like a Hippocratic oath: do no harm. And the four things that I put into the fiduciary in all things kind of proposition are that we never put the truth or people or the planet or democracy beneath our own self-concern. In other words, we do not take advantage of those things just to serve our own profit. Why would we ever set up a system where we let, capital undermine democracy or truth or
Mm.
people? It doesn't make any sense. So it's time to just tweak it. It's just a tweak at the base of the system because the problems are systemic. And right now we're racing after each one, trying to fix them all individually. And that's incredibly inefficient.
Yeah. And you make some good points, George. And even if I were to go with you and say that's true, I can see there might be some way to tweak or improve. I just don't know how you're going to get this done, right? You mentioned regulations earlier. Let's just take my business. We're heavily regulated to the point where we have to hire very talented individuals to work on our compliance side just to get to the small to medium sized business that we are. How are small businesses going to even work through all of this red tape and regulation? How do you even ensure that corporations are going to adopt this mindset of fiduciary in all things, doesn't that mean we're just going to blow up and have a bunch of red tape and then nothing's going to happen and that will then disincentivize investment? That's kind of what I'm seeing. I'm just not figuring out how you would even accomplish that if I did make the concession and not because I'm debating you here, that you have a good point.
Well, I actually think, as I've given thought to this, that regulation is going to go down. And
Really?
I think it's going to go down. I think it's going to go down significantly. The reason that we have that kind of regulatory system, I mean, again, come to our profession, where we know what I mean, I've traveled the world around this. Why are regulators regulate? Is it that they really want to regulate? They want to regulate that the consumer doesn't get harmed. And where does the consumer get harmed? Does it get harmed in a transactional model where they are being sold a bunch of goods and not being treated from held under a fiduciary standard? Or are they harmed by professionals have sworn to this fiduciary standard and are held to it? So the reason that we have so much regulation is that we don't have a fiduciary standard. So the government's going off, how do I fix this? How do I fix this? Well, wait a minute. If we took pride of purpose, if each of our corporations took pride the way we take pride as fiduciaries in the financial world of what we do, I think you're going to see less regulation, significantly less.
So essentially, what you're saying is that we can magically wave a wand and say, boom, you're a fiduciary, and everyone is just going to act better, and they're not going to need any of these laws and regulations to tell them how to act better?
Well, it's going to be a process, obviously, and I mean, historically, it's going to look as if we just waved the magic wand because it's going to happen in an historical blink of an eye. But that may mean 20 years. I don't know, what the whole stream of process is. But if you consider what the fiduciary uh, movement or what's happening with fiduciary in the corporate world, there's the fiduciary towards shareholders and then there's the fiduciary that you and I share, which is we really believe in putting the clients first. And that touches our hearts. I mean, it inspires people in the financial world more than it disincentivizes and I mean, it replaces in many ways profit, not entirely. It's our connection with the client. The third fiduciary thing that's happening now, because of the concern about the planet primarily and of inequality, is B corporations have created something where they're actually looking at what should the relationship between a CEO's salary and the salaries of the workers be, that kind of thing. And what should the regulations be internally? How should we think about pollution? So they're already thinking about that. And the whole ESG movement was putting committees into corporations looking at how that might be. And now what I'm saying is, hey, let's go the whole way. Let's make sure the truth, we do not undermine truth as corporate, as with all this leveraged power that you described. We're using that leveraged power right now to undermine truth and to undermine the planet and to undermine democracy. So let's make sure that we protect democracy and truth as well. I think we can do it. And yeah, I don't. First of all, you gotta make people know that it's possible, and then you have to go through the legislative process of making it happen.
Yeah. I'm trying to understand, let's just take the US, for example, right? Getting anything through our legislative process right now is a heavy lift. How do you envision that this would even come about? I mean, we have gridlock in DC. Uh, we're focused on so many other things, and I'm sure other democracies around the world. And there are many countries that are not democracies, right? And you're talking about a global fiduciary standard. I just don't see, the way that corporations are structured, right? We have the limited liability. So, me as a shareholder, I'm not liable for the faulty products that I'm invested in. Are you saying that the courts would become involved? I'm just trying to figure out the actual physical application of just putting a fiduciary standard onto our largest corporations.
It's natural that you would do that. I mean, what you're doing is you're looking at how would the laws work, and that's
Yeah.
really what that's the era that we've been in. This is different. If you look at fiduciary, again, fiduciary in investment advisors or financial planners, it's not so much about the law as it is in the pride of purpose that we're really serving the community. And that makes us act in a different way. Now, it's not to say that those regulations aren't important and that they will happen. You touched on a number of issues. If we look at gridlock in Washington, I mean, it's pretty clear that an enormous amount of that gridlock is happening because you have kind of this battle between, um, frankly, between huge wealth and oligarchy and the people in a way. Or now you're seeing the spread of misinformation everywhere. If we began to let kind of the world know and the political powers know that as people we don't want misinformation anymore. That undermines democracy. It undermines science. It undermines commerce. How can we have efficient business if we don't know the truth of things? So look at the Department of Labor just recently, the Bureau Labor Statistics and the replacement of a uh, of a senior post. Um, so I think that the that what we see is that in terms of that limited liability, just to add one more thing. Yeah, I mean that's important and it's still there. But if the board of directors isn't paying attention, if the whole community of the corporation isn't paying attention, listening, I think of, I know I'm wandering all over the place, but I think of a corporation not as a machine and not as a data processing and not as a computer system, which is how we have been thinking of them. I think we need to begin to think of them as organic and sustainable entities. What does a tree look like? How much regulation does a tree need to move? To blow in the wind, to have its leaves tell all the rest of the part of the tree how much oxygen it's letting go of, how much carbon dioxide it's taking in. Um, I think we need to listen much better, and I think that this system will do it, and we'll find people being much more proud of the places of work that they work in and what they do.
Yeah. Just to take an example,
Hmm.
I run a corporation that makes junk food. We all love to pick on junk food. We love junk food. Of course we do. Our bodies are programmed. Those are chemicals that are specifically made for us to crave. How do I make so today I'm all of a sudden a fiduciary and I'm no longer trying to figure out how can I produce the tastiest snacks that my customers want, even if it's not good for them, but I'll just pretend that it's not at the most profitable way. So that, by the way, George, I can give my employees raises and it's the board that pays me, right? They're the ones that determine my CEO pay package, right? Why am I all of a sudden going to erase all of that, put my workers' jobs at risk because I may not be as profitable in the future so that I can make products that are not as tasty and that my customers don't crave as much, right? You see what I'm going through here? This is a hard transition. I mean,
Yeah,
I've got
yeah,
trying to get into the mechanics of how we're all of a sudden just gonna,
right, right,
switch from junk food to health food and keep everybody in their seats and
right.
profitable.
Right. So the question, back at you in a way is so Rachel Carson started talking about the environment in the 1950s, and we had Earth Day, the first Earth Day. What was it in 1972? And is the Earth in a better place than it was then? And we have to say no, no, and we're in trouble on planet Earth. So what was it that the oil companies could have done then? And what did they do instead? And how much misinformation have we seen? Picking, the scientists like you're picking, just one apple out of a tree of 1,000 to argue that, in fact, they were doing the right thing. So it would require, and it's similar for the junk food too. I mean, it requires looking at what are we doing? Is there a way of transitioning? How would we transition? How can we do it? Is it possible to do this without undermining the people that are working for us right now? But it also means that if the law were already in place, probably that junk food wouldn't have happened because it really undermines our health tremendously. And so if it were in place, if fiat had been in place, 50 years ago, I don't think we'd see the climate challenge we have right now. We wouldn't see the undermining of democracy that's happening. We certainly wouldn't see this undermining of truth. That's a terrifying thing that's happening. And we wouldn't see 3 billionaires in America owning as much as 180 million people. It just that's some people think that's gross. Some people think it's criminal. It just wouldn't be happening. So, that I think is the answer. Yes, I mean your heart has to go out to. You have to be empathic toward a business that has built something, and toward its people, and there has to be transition. But let's get on with it. It's time
Yeah.
for it's. Let's make a sustainable planet. Where have you frozen on me? I hope. Uh, Looks as if Blair has frozen on me, and so I'll just keep going a bit. Oh, no. Hello, everybody. I don't know what to do right at this moment. Blair's internet has dropped. I think we've had a great debate so far. Um, uh, One of the things that I look forward to talking about is innovation. Let's see if Blair comes back on. But uh, um, if one of the reasons that we've held, let me just see if I've got a keep going. Yeah. The um, one of the one of the arguments that's often made, and Blair has been alluding to this, that investors take risk and risk to make profit, and they still will. It's just that there will be a humane standard, a trustworthy standard, so all of us feel safer in the world around us. But innovation isn't going to slow down because of that. In fact, it's likely to speed up. Don't you? Can't I mean, if you think about innovation, wouldn't innovation speed up if, in fact, we knew that we could trust scientific standards, if we knew we could trust the truth to be reported in our media, if we knew that there was less inequality, so that so that more people could be engaged entrepreneurially, so that the money would spread around a little bit more, so that more people in more areas of the world, more geographic parts of the world, but also more parts in their, in terms of family and different kinds of areas, if they were innovating there as well, and then finally, just this sense of trustworthiness that society would have. I mean, I'm in the UK right now on an innovator founder visa. I moved here partly because the bullying that's going on in social media, hugely in the US, didn't feel like a place to launch something that was going to be really innovative and at the same time trying to create something that's sustainable. So I don't know if Blair heard all of that.
George,
Welcome
can
back,
you see
Blair.
me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
My
Yeah.
phone just shut off. It
Oh
was
no.
not acting appropriately as a fiduciary just then.
There you go.
That was
Jeez.
very interesting, but you handled that beautifully because I tuned in on my computer there for a minute.
Oh, good.
Um, One thing that we haven't gotten to though that
Yeah.
I think is really important, and if I missed it, let's harp on it again, the truth.
Right. Yeah.
There's
The truth.
so much misinformation out there.
Right.
But the truth is actually also evolving. I think of science, right? The things that were quote unquote true 50 years ago, we've learned more, we've incorporated more. How are we going to deal? How will corporations be responsible and held to a fiduciary standard on the truth if the truth itself is also evolving and people have differences of opinion on what is true?
Truth is a huge thing, and I love that you're. I'll give a promotion for the name of your Substack place, which is the Bell Curve, because the I think that what we need to do in terms of the truth is put the truth, just like we had a fairness doctrine that went from the 50s through the 70s, that kind of held a standard of truth. We need to re-up that standard of truth, and we can do it now. Artificial intelligence, rather than creating a bunch of misinformation, can in fact be harnessed to know what is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. What is the truth that satisfies investigative journalism? What is the truth that satisfies science? What is the truth that would satisfy perjury in a trial?
Mm,
Those standards of truth are out there, and humanity did it. We established those, and now they're all falling apart by having the media doing this crazy thing. I think that if we had a bell curve, if we understood truth and the necessity of truth, both for commerce and for democracy and for our health, for heaven's sakes. But if we understood that there's a bell curve of truth, and Galileo at one point was way out on the far edge, and
mhm.
wasn't part of truth, but eventually he became right in the center, and then he began to go out toward the edge again. So there is that does change over time. So we wouldn't want to eliminate all the different things, all the different theories that are out there. But if we're going to vote as citizens, we need to know when something is really true and when something is merely a theory.
Yeah,
We need to know when someone is dissing truth.
yeah,
And without it, our democracy fails. Commerce is going to fail. Science, we can see science being undermined in academia right now.
yeah. We have a great comment here from Julian Powell. I'm going to read it just because it's beautiful. Confucius wrote, if leaders were model examples of what human beings should be, benevolence, rightness, propriety, moral wisdom, the whole world would follow. This is where fiat is for me, a profound pull to help us reach our highest selves. Wow. That's a
Well,
powerful statement.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Hmm.
Jeffrey Ash also said it's a problem of scale. This is interesting because we haven't really
Mhm,
touched on
mhm.
the externalities, right? The quote invisible hand worked well when enterprises and communities were small and there were a dense network of social capital. The
Right.
issue is that the richest control the political process and increase inequality. So I'll take the opposite side and then I'll throw it back to you, George.
You bet.
We wouldn't have what we have today, access to low cost goods and services, the specialization that capitalism provides, where someone can focus all of their energy on doing one thing really, really, really well. You don't get that without the pooling of global capital and the growth of these global businesses. And so I'm just worried that under a fiduciary standard, if you take that away, we might not get such wonderful benefits of the scale of global capitalism.
Who does global capitalism benefit the most? I mean, it benefits those three billionaires that have half the wealth of the, I mean, as much wealth as half the American population. So it is. But I agree. I think global scaling is a wonderful thing when it's working for us, which is why we need a fiduciary standard rather than a standard now that just accumulates more and more inequality. So I want to talk about both Julian Powell's statement and also Jeffrey Ash. I think these are really interesting comments. Julian is talking about how the CEOs, what is it that the CEO stands for? What is it that they model? So under the capitalism that you've been forced to defend here, Blair, and I don't know how you can do it. Good job. But under capitalism as it stands right now, which is frankly just dumb economics. That's what capitalism as it is right now is because it isn't sustainable. It doesn't help human beings and all of that. But what happens is that CEOs are forced to put profit first, above humanity, above truth, above democracy, and above the planet. Ridiculous. Just ridiculous. So what Julian is saying is that if fiat is in fact adopted and we bring it into business, and this is why I'm over here in the UK, is I'm doing a startup bringing it into business actually, and seeing it as a way to make businesses more productive and more profitable. But if CEOs begin to understand that their brand is to be great listeners to their people, to the earth around them, to democracy and to the truth, and then model that. Wow, what a world we suddenly have. And suddenly we're looking at our leaders and going, boy, I want to model myself after them instead of being like, what is going on in this planet right now? Jeffrey Ash's point about scale couldn't agree more with. And he knows much more about it than I do because he's a professor that at Columbia that really works with kind of billions, how billions of people structure their economics at the lower end of the economic ladder. Um, but the interesting thing about scale, I mean, I experienced it, and you probably have too, Blair, in your business, because as a fee only financial advisor doing life planning, uh, I I was not in a free market. You talk about the advantages of kind of the capitalism as if there were competition making things happen. That's the whole theory. That's the whole idea. There was no free market for me. I was up against Merrill Lynch. I was up against Smith Barney. And there's no free market now. The markets right now are dominated by big companies. And and we need that kind of competition. So I'm completely with Jeff in terms of scale. I want to see innovation at every level and all over the world. And that's going to happen if we lessen the inequality and we open up markets to be free. I think we'll have less regulation, as I said, with fiat.
Mm. Yeah, I'm thinking of in our own industry an example of trying to apply the fiduciary standard to those who aren't fiduciaries. And it's, of course, not in their interest to have the fiduciary standard applied. And all of the lobbying money of those huge broker dealers that will basically stomp down any attempt to apply that fiduciary standard, even in the case where the Department of Labor was trying to say, but only on their retirement funds, only on their retirement funds must you act as fiduciary. There was even so much money pushing back against that. But again, you know, I go back to the how, as the debater here, how are we going to make sure that we don't stifle investment and innovation? We have one more comment here from Michelle. I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name, Fate. Corporations make different decisions if externalities were included in their traditional profit model. If pollution, environmental harm, substandard wages, et cetera, were included in the model, the decisions would be different. Um, Very interesting comment there. But
Yeah. So,
what have we not covered, or do you want to respond to Michelle there?
well, I want to respond to the issue about the insurance companies and the because that's a really important one in our industry. So we've had this debate. I mean, it's wonderful that we're talking about fiduciary. Most consumers don't know what fiduciary means. It has been pigeonholed down to this now this very narrow, Department of Labor rule in our world. And what's happened over the past few decades is we thought of fiduciary as being an argument between salespeople on the one hand and registered investment advisors, certified financial planners, life planners, fee only advisors on the other hand. And so we thought of it as being this clash between two ways of basically good people trying to earn livings. That's a fake. That's just what the reason that we get there is because those huge insurance companies make sure that nobody looks at them. Instead of looking at the salespeople, it's the insurance companies that aren't fiduciaries. It's the banks that aren't fiduciaries. Imagine this just for a moment. If every if no bank and no insurance company lent money to any company that wasn't fiduciary. Imagine if banks only lent money to people who were fiduciaries. And if insurance companies only insured companies that were fiduciary in all things toward the planet, toward the people, toward democracy, whew, what an incredible world that would be. So it really starts in our industry, which is maybe the point I want to make. I think it's time that we branded fiduciary as being something that we embrace in our industry, that we're proud of, that we want to speak to the larger corporations and say, even shame them. Why aren't you fiduciary? We've been talking about it for, 50, 60, 70 years. Why aren't you fiduciary? We are, and it works. And it
Mm,
would work well for the planet and for the future of humanity. Let's go.
yeah. Well, that's a really strong kind of closing argument there. I don't know that I have much left in the tank to give. This has been a hard debate for me. I think I mentioned to you, I wasn't on the debate team in high school or anything like that. But I'm very intrigued by the conversation. I think we should keep this going. We've only touched here on corporations. There are so many other facets to this fiduciary and all things. What if the government acted as a fiduciary? What if nonprofits acted as fiduciaries. So maybe we can have a series of additional conversations if enough people are interested and keep this going. And I would say that we've kind of been kicking this idea around for a few months, but I happened to write a blog post about what if there was a global fiduciary standard, and a comment was, to me, I would love to see you debate Milton Friedman on this. I don't know if I'm worthy of that, but and I'm certainly not a stand-in here for any economists. But I appreciate your time, George, and I appreciate everybody for tuning in. We'll be posting this on our blogs and sharing it out so that other people can see it. And George, I'm so looking forward to seeing you at Future Proof next month. It's coming up here in just a few weeks.
Me too. And next time we're on here debating, I want to make sure we touch on Milton Friedman as if he were here.
Okay,
But future proof
that'll
coming up.
yeah, that'll be fun. I really look
Yeah,
forward to it. So
me
thank you
too.
so much, George.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Blair.
All
This was
right,
fun.
thanks everybody for tuning in.
Hey, bye.
Bye.